Hi everyone, welcome to the Life of Education podcast. So today we're here with Cheryl Parsons from the Peace Lily.
Good morning.
Good morning, and we're here to talk about yoga and pregnancy. So maybe you can start with letting us know about a little bit about yourself and how you got into yoga.
Sure. Well, I've been in Dubai 13 years, which I can't quite believe, but I actually started in radio, so reading the news. And 10 years ago, I did my teacher training, so I've done my 200 and 300 hours. And back in the day, the yoga scene was quite small, so they were really crying out for teachers. So I was kind of glad to get into it when I did. I started teaching prenatal yoga as well about 6 years ago. I've done about 3 prenatal yoga trainings. So, and also I had my 2 children. So I have a little 2.5-year-old boy, Henry, and a 5.5-year-old girl, Molly. So really just teaching around Dubai for 10 years. It was my decade anniversary in March.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I don't know how it just flew by. So I was practicing yoga for many years, and when I came out to Dubai, I met some great teachers. Actually practiced a lot of Ashtanga and got very into the practice. And
I love Ashtanga. It's my practice.
I don't practice so much of that now, but I did a lot of that in Vinyasa back in the day, pre-kids, when I had so much time on my hands.
2 hours for a daily Mysore
exactly,
practice.
Yeah. And I just was really inspired to go and do the teacher training. And as I say, it wasn't that big a thing back then. So, it was really quite special to go off to India for a month and do this training. And it just all started from there. As soon as I came back from the training, I started teaching friends in the park, and then I got a job at Zen Yoga, where I'm still teaching today. So it's all spiraled from there.
Why did you decide to get into it? What was the decision process?
I just, from when I moved to Dubai, I kind of really ramped up my yoga practice. So I was probably practicing about six times a week. I met 2 very inspiring teachers, and they really encouraged me. They had done the training that I had done. And I said to them, after about 2 years, I said, I'd really love to do this. I really feel like this is the direction I want to go in. So it just felt like a natural progression. And when I went to Goa and did my 200 hours, and some of the best times of my life doing those trainings, it's really amazing.
Yeah, I think when you start practicing 6 days a week, it becomes addictive.
Yes.
And it's just the way that you feel,
yeah,
and the way that it puts your mind and your body, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it really, it's a natural next step.
Yeah, transformative. So, it's been an amazing journey, and sometimes I can't quite believe that I'm teaching yoga. It's a bit strange, to think that 10 years on I'm teaching, doing what I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really important. So tell me, how did you get into prenatal yoga? You said that was six years ago. Was that because you got pregnant?
Yes, actually, when I did my first training, I was 17 weeks pregnant. So I wasn't, I didn't really think much about it before I was pregnant. But when I was pregnant, I thought, I really would love to know how to help ladies during pregnancy, and it felt natural for me when I was pregnant myself. So that was really special, because I started teaching straight after the course. So I was pregnant myself. I taught up until about 34 weeks, and I did prenatal classes while I was pregnant. So it was a really special, journey to be able to share that, and just to feel how my body moved as a pregnant body. It was it was amazing. So
maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the differences.
Yes, okay. I think until you get pregnant, you don't actually realise just how much the body changes. It's pretty phenomenal, really. First of all, the body's got to make a lot of space for baby growing. So, there's a lot of changes to your skeletal system. If you look at your spine, if you look at a heavily pregnant woman, you can see that as she gets more and more pregnant, the belly starts to pull her forward, breasts grow, everything starts to pull her forward. So she's going into more of that lordotic curve.
Yeah.
So your whole system really has to shift to kind of accommodate and make space. So your practice naturally changes. And I think when you are pregnant, you instinctively, especially if you've been practicing yoga for a while, you do instinctively feel those changes in your body, and you make space, like simple things like keeping your feet hip width apart, as your pelvis also widens. One of the side effects of pregnancy, the hips get a little bit wider. The pelvis has to move to create space for baby's head to come down eventually into the pelvis. You're going to have your feet hip width apart. You're going to have to also think about your back and not trying to fully correct that lordosis, because the body has to shift and move into that position, but just to be aware that you're going to have to adapt your practice to help alleviate some of these structural changes that happen. So a lot of things going on in the body. It's
so you saw it all the way to 34 weeks. Is that a usual
Yes.
thing, or is that kind of a rare thing? Like what's this typical time span when someone who's pregnant can continue?
I think it's up to the individual. So again, your body yourself, and you know what you're capable of. I just felt kind of from about 34 weeks, I started to feel very heavy, moving, up and down and teaching. I was actually still teaching regular classes as well as prenatals. So, getting up and down was a bit harder. I had 2 absolutely massive children. My daughter was just shy of 5 kilograms. That's 10 pounds 8, which is a whopper.
Wow.
And then my son was 9 pounds 8, so he was 4.7 kg. So I thought at the time I had a nice, lovely, belly, big belly, but actually when I look back, I was huge, and I was heavy. You start to get a lot more sore in your hips and your pelvis. The old pelvic floor's getting a bit of a battering. So I just naturally felt it was time to kind of slow things down in the last 6 weeks. But everybody's different. Some women will work right up to the end. This is why I think it's really great to be fit and, healthy during your pregnancy, because you can continue to do things. Myself, I continued to swim and practice yoga right up until... Actually, my daughter was 5 days late and my son was 4 days late, and I was still practicing and swimming. But you'll know, I think when you're pregnant, you tend to feel that in your own body, what's right. You've got this intuition, so yeah.
So maybe traveling through the stages of pregnancy, how is yoga different for each stage?
Okay. Yeah, so first trimester, if you're lucky, you will get through the first trimester without any morning sickness. But if you're unlucky, which I was, up until about 16, 17 weeks, women can feel very nauseous. They can have vomiting, the terrible fatigue as well. You just wonder, what has hit my body here? I'm so tired. And this is certainly the way I felt during the first trimester. So actually for me, that was a big wake-up call, because I was practicing 6 days a week, and suddenly downward dog was like the most vomit-inducing pose I could ever do. So, I had to just say, right, stop. I really couldn't do anything. The movement was
makes you very nauseous.
Very challenging. I remember the only thing that saved me was I would get my yoga bolster and I would lie back, with the feet together, soles of the feet together, and just open my chest and just try to hope that this waves of nausea would go.
So would you encourage women to practice yoga during that time?
If they feel good, yes. I say don't stop what you're doing. Certainly if they've had a yoga practice before, continue, if they feel good. And that's the thing, they've really got to listen to their bodies and rest. If they need to rest, you've got to more so, that goes without saying for anybody in a yoga practice, but more so when you're pregnant, you've got to listen to the signals. And if you're tired, don't be pushing yourself through 90 minutes of vinyasa. Take rest, have a nap, lie down over a bolster, it's
child's pose.
Yeah, child's pose, that was another savior. So they've got to listen to those signals. And really my body was telling me that I could not do the practice.
And was that the same for both of your children?
Yes, yeah. But other people are lucky; they don't have that. They might have the fatigue. You'll also have a lot of hormonal swings. There's a big rise in progesterone, estrogen also, and these are hormones that are going to make you feel bloated, weepy, moody. So you're going to adapt your practice to that also. So that's first trimester. What we would say as well, at studios tend to say to women, come after the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, because it's a really sensitive time. There is a risk of miscarriage.
Yeah, particularly if women are prone to having miscarriages
Yes.
and trouble conceiving.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think it's not something. It's unlikely to be something you've done in your yoga practice unless you've fallen out of an arm balance, or you're doing something silly and you've given yourself trauma to the belly or to your body. But you just want to err on that side of caution and just take a step back. Now, women who have had maybe a practice like I did 6 days a week, or a really regular practice, and they know their bodies and they know how to move, and they're working intuitively, then they might continue during the first 12 weeks if they feel good. So again, I think the rule of thumb is don't stop what you're doing if you feel good, but just be mindful that it is a sensitive time.
And is there any yoga postures that are definite no-nos?
Yes, I mean, from throughout this, and this goes throughout the whole of pregnancy, we, first of all, if we look at twists, it makes sense not to twist so much across your belly. Now, obviously, during the first trimester, baby is tiny fetus, very cocooned in the belly. So, if you're doing a twist, it's not going to really massively affect, especially if you've had a practice before. But again, I think you don't want to be doing big, strong across the belly twists.
Marichyasana.
Marichyasana from the Ashtanga, any of those, twisted triangle, real cranking the knees to the belly and lying on your back and really feeling that, like you would in a twist, where you feel that engagement in your core.
Yeah.
So you just want to be mindful that you're not doing things like that. As you progress through pregnancy and the belly grows, naturally you want to take more of an open twist. So you, instead of twisting, say in twisted triangle, you're just taking regular triangle. Or if you're doing, like a pose where you would come across the knee, you're taking the elbow to the inside of the knee, and you're just leaving, this is what my belly was like, you're leaving space, for your belly. And just thinking about, okay, baby's in there growing, I need to be mindful of that.
You don't want to squash it.
Yeah, so twists, that's a thing that we really kind of tend to ease off. The other big thing is core work. So you don't want to be on your back doing sit-ups, crunches. Again, if we think about it, it's just putting a lot of pressure on the abdominals. It's not going to feel good, especially as the belly starts to pop out. You just won't want to do it. Women will feel this in their bodies, but some women, they don't know. They've never done a yoga practice, or they come to prenatal yoga for the first time and they don't know what's good, what's not. They don't have that awareness in their bodies. So we need to really make them mindful of this. As well as pregnancy progresses, things like planks and chaturangas, you will see experienced practitioners continuing with those sorts of moves. And again, I would say they know their bodies and they know their practice. But my advice would be to ease off. I would always tell my students ease off that kind of thing. We have a lovely prenatal vinyasa that we do, which has like a sweeping cat movement. It gives you that feeling of the chaturanga movement of your arms. A little bit of a press up, but without putting any pressure on your core. So core work, really have to ease off on that.
Maybe you can explain to people why, because I've seen a lot of women in the past that don't want to let their belly get bigger, and so they start doing more of that. And I think it's a lot of miscommunication, both in gyms and in yoga practices as well. So maybe you can explain why no core work.
Yes, you can do. There are some gentle core exercises that you can do. So it is important to maintain some sense of your core, and not just let it all hang out, because then you're going to have issues, post-pregnancy, trying to get back your core back. So simple things like coming onto hands and knees and doing, alternative arms and legs, where you're bringing your elbow and your knee to the side of the belly and just keeping a nice neutral spine. These are great movements that you can do, and nice and safe during pregnancy, just to help. And this will also help with lower back pain. If your back is sore, helping to stabilize a little bit in your core is going to greatly help. But yes, these women in the gym, and they're constantly holding their belly in for fear of, they don't want it all to come out, and it's maybe an alien thing to them to have this big belly, if they've had a bit of a six-pack before. That wasn't my case, but anyway. You're going to have you might even have issues during pregnancy of the diastasis recti, where the abdominals start to separate. If you overwork your core, this is what can happen, where your transverse abdominis actually come apart. And obviously that's a big issue, very common post-pregnancy, and very common in women who are gym goers and they're really fit, that their abdominals will actually separate. So after pregnancy, you've got that line down the middle of your belly, that nice soft connective tissue. So there's going to be more of a gap between the abdominals. And this takes a lot of, it takes work to get it back together.
So maybe for women who are listening, why is it important to keep that together?
Well, naturally it is going to move apart. So number one, they need to accept that their belly is going to grow, things are going to shift, their abdominals are going to move apart, and that has to happen for their baby to grow, So number one, acceptance. But number two, they just want to avoid too much separation, but naturally this can happen in the body. So, after pregnancy, we just want to be mindful of that postnatal period, especially the first 6 weeks, or if they've had a cesarean, that it's sort of 10 to 12 weeks after birth, that they just gently do some nice exercises to bring the abdominals back together. They're not doing any strong crunches, really strong core work that's going to bulge the abdominals out and actually create more separation. So they just want to be mindful of that. They're working on some gentle core throughout the pregnancy, maybe supported by a nice prenatal yoga class or prenatal Pilates. And just not overdoing it, not hitting it hard in the gym and trying to maintain their six-pack, because that's not going to happen.
I think for women, the pressure to return to their pre-baby weight body it's just huge.
Yeah, it's really
so
big.
I think a lot of women are like, well, if I don't put on weight during pregnancy and if I keep my tummy really tight, then it's going to be easier. They don't realize you've got like millions of years of all of this evolution that's like, no, we're going in this direction. This is what's happening.
Yeah, and women need to stay fit. At the same time, they shouldn't just sit on the couch and say, okay, I'm pregnant, let's just relax here and eat a tub of Pringles or whatever. But they've got to accept their body is going to shift. They're not going, that six-pack, to keep everything tight in and to grip onto that feeling of wanting to keep their body the way it is, you've got to roll with Mother Nature, the body has got to make space. Things have got to move out. They've got to shift. Organs have got to shift up into small corners of the body, like your lungs will move up and get squashed into one top quarter, which is why when we're heavily pregnant, we're short of breath. And so they just have to, again, be mindful of that these changes are going to happen and not to fight against that, to do things that support their body.
So Cheryl, maybe you can go through with us the second trimester and some of the changes that occur there, and then how people change their practice for that.
Okay, so during the second trimester, they're going to see a growth of the belly is going to start to pop out. Everybody's different. This happens at different stages, anywhere from about 14 weeks. Some people's bellies don't show until the late 20 weeks or so. Things that are going to happen also in the pelvis. There's going to be a slight widening of the pelvis. There's a big hormone that comes into play, big time, which you're going to really notice in the second trimester, and that's relaxin. So this hormone does what it says on the tin. It relaxes the muscles and the ligaments just to make space for baby, and also to prepare the body for birth. So things that can happen, again, not every woman is going to feel this, but you can start to feel more pressure in your pelvis. Some people will get pain in their pelvis. In more severe cases, you might get something called SPD, which is symphysis pubis dysfunction. If you think about the pelvis, again, you've got that symphysis pubis little join in the middle. The relaxin's going to naturally kind of loosen all this. So, in a normal body, there'll be a bit of a gap. But at the front of the pelvis, if you're pregnant and you do get more of a separation, and this can move apart like up to 9-10 millimeters. Wow. So that's going to create a lot of pain in the hips, outer hips, maybe inner thighs, in the front of the pelvis. Also the SI joints at the back, these can start to slide around a little. Again, in a normal person, I don't know I'm not an anatomy buff, but you might know what the degree of slide for the SI joints. It's only a small movement.
Yeah, in a normal non-relaxing induced body, it's going to be pretty tight, pretty stiff. But once you soften those connective tissues, then you've got the whole load of the upper body straight through the spinal column, just pushing down on that almost keystone between the two limbs. So it's going to be just a shearing force.
Yes, yeah.
On both sides. And if you've got any underlying issues going into it, if you've got any just general pre-pregnancy back pain or postural issues, you're going to exacerbate them, and that's when you're going to find out about it. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that is certainly in the second trimester. This can show up, as you say, if women are predisposed to having back pain during pregnancy or SI joint issues. Then as baby grows and body gets bigger and the hips start to move a little bit and the back gets more unstable, these can really exacerbate these problems. Again, people can have a wonderful second trimester with no issues. It is also known as the trimester when, you're said to be glowing and blooming during your pregnancy. So this is the nice stage. Certainly for me, I felt that once I got over the sort of 16-week hump of the nausea and the morning all-day sickness. Second trimester was lovely because you've got a belly, you look pregnant, you're still feeling pretty able to move around. But as I say, there are women that can have these issues as body starts to get bigger and baby grows bigger. So that's a big one, the SPD or the pelvic girdle pain. And you've got to really adapt your practice during that time. Some women will be advised not to do yoga. If they've got severe pain, they might need to take rest or do some physio.
Yeah, I've seen some women wearing the belts.
Yes.
The supportive pelvic belts. Yeah,
so that's just going to help keep the pelvis more stable and keep just that separation from happening too much. So those are really great. Actually, in my second pregnancy, and I think this was due to the fact that my body had already loosened from my first mammoth baby. So when I got into my second pregnancy in the second trimester, from about 24 weeks, I started to have this back pain. I had SI joint pain, and I'd never had back pain before. And it would be a simple thing of sitting on the sofa and not being able to get up. When you have that SI pain, to be able to put weight on one foot, it's very challenging. So, I'd have to sort of commando roll off the sofa, shout at my husband, he'd have to get me up. You really felt like some sort of I don't know, it was difficult. So these are things that can happen during the second trimester. Again, you've got your shifts to your skeletal system, so your lower back is steadily going into more of a curve. You can also get that kyphosis of your upper back, where the shoulders are starting to drop down, as the breasts grow. And, those changes are happening during the second trimester. More towards the late second trimester, you can get more rounding in the upper back, so can get a lot of upper back pain, a lot of stiffness, chest very tight. So these are all things that can
how
happen.
would these physical changes affect your yoga practice within the second trimester?
Okay, so if we go back to the pelvic girdle pain, you're really going to have to adapt in your yoga practice. So one of the first things that we say is a no deep squats. Feet shouldn't be wide, or feet shouldn't be any wider than hip width apart. In a prenatal yoga practice, we do a lot of nice squats to help prepare and open the pelvis and prepare the body for birth. But if someone has got that pelvic girdle pain, second, third trimester, you do not want them doing a deep goddess. This is going to exacerbate the separation and actually it's really going to make it worse. So they're going to have to really adapt. They're going to have to think about stabilizing more than the flexibility. So things like stabilizing their glutes, chair pose, nice chair pose, maybe with a block between the knees. That's going to help create some stability in the glutes. Also going to have to stabilize their lower back and just try and help alleviate some of these problems. So that's a big one. I've taught women before that have had pelvic girdle pain. And the problem is with that is it's something that it might not show up as much in the yoga practice. So when they're moving, it can feel quite good. But if there's inflammation there and the separation is there, it's something that can be much more present after their yoga. So they need to be really mindful that they're not doing anything that's going to exacerbate the separation and, put more pressure on their pelvic area. So they need to really adapt. And as I say, some people might need to just take a step back altogether.
That's what I was going to ask you. What advice would you have for people who, no matter what they do, the movements or the positioning or the poses just cause them too much problems, and how do they avoid becoming couch vegetables for the next few months?
I actually have sent ladies to the chiropractor. I went myself because it got to the point that a lunge, I couldn't do a lunge. I was having to really shorten my stance, and just if I went into any kind of a lunge or any kind of a squat, I just felt this pain in my pelvis, and I knew this is not right. So I went to a chiropractor, and he adjusted. It was my SI joint that had really slipped out, and he did some great adjustments. There's a guy, it was Dr. Jerry in Dubai, and has treated a lot of women with pelvic girdle pain. So there's a lot of physios that women can go to, and I would say...
Should they look for a specific pregnancy orientated physio chiropractor, or most of them is it within their scope?
Yeah, I would probably look for somebody who has experience of working with women with SPD and pelvic girdle pain, because they will know exactly what to do, and just they can make some adjustments. Massage is also very good. So what tends to happen if the body is overcompensating for these to try and stabilize the pelvis, you'll get a very tight hips, very maybe pain in the piriformis. I know my piriformis was completely knotted on one side. So deep tissue massage, amazing, really good. And I found that after these sessions, I wasn't having the pain. So if someone came into me and they just said, they're finding it hard maybe even to walk, I wouldn't have them do the yoga practice. I would send them to a physio or a specialist who could help them, because they're going to need to, to release that pain.
Before they start a yoga practice.
Yeah, and just, again, gentle stuff, probably more stability. as I've said, rather than flexibility.
So would you recommend them to move into, say, doing prenatal Pilates instead?
Yes, that I've heard that is really, I don't have experience of that myself, but I'm sure that would be amazing for the stability of their core and pelvis. Yeah, so these are all options. And just to seek advice of a medical professional, because sometimes people tend to think when you're a yoga teacher that you know all the answers to everything, and it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know, please speak to this person, they can help you.
I think that's actually really important, because I think when it's the honesty and transparency that builds the trust. It's not necessarily the person who has all the answers.
Yes.
So if I know that you don't know, at least I know I'm getting an honest answer from you. So now we can talk about the next stage. Who would you advise I go speak to? Or what would you suggest? And it validates all the rest of the advice you've given me.
Yes.
Because now you've said, okay, well, that one I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's quite important. A lot of people feel the pressure, from in positions of teaching. They feel the pressure of having to know all the answers.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's not because they're trying to mislead, or it's not because they're trying to let their ego get in the way. It's because they genuinely want to help.
Yes.
And the pressure is there. So I think getting a network of people around you in any profession is...
Yeah, and I've run the prenatal yoga training, and what I like to do is give a list of people who I know, women's health physios, acupuncture, chiropractor, people who can help. So if someone does come into your class and they are, you can physically see that they're struggling really to walk, but they thought, I've got to do the yoga, this is really going to help me, and they're just in pain and everything's inflamed, you can say to them, look, ease off. If see how you feel today, do what you can, but if you want to go and see someone, here's a couple of numbers that you can call.
Would you recommend people take up yoga, like a girl who has a history of athletic training and she just can't face maybe going for that 5k run, obviously, or she can't face joining her CrossFit class, but she wants to stay active?
Yes.
Where does yoga fall in on the sort of absolutely, or maybe do this first, or no, don't go near it unless you've done this?
I would say absolutely. Yeah. A lot of women come to prenatal yoga and they've never done yoga before, and they come to prepare their body for birth and to help their body during pregnancy. So it's a fantastic practice, and you do tend to get so many women, they've never been on the yoga mat before, but this is the nice thing, they come into the practice, it helps them build strength and stamina and flexibility. There's also the mental aspect of just preparing their self for creating space, not only in their physical body but space for becoming a mum. It's a massive transition, so I would say to any woman, come and try prenatal yoga, and then afterwards also it's going to support them post-birth. So definitely get on the mat. It's a great time to start, and a lot of women then continue their yoga practice. Prenatal yoga was their first taste of yoga, and they continue it post-birth with a bit of postnatal and also mummy and me yoga, and and then they continue that practice on. So it's really good.
I also found in Dubai that it was a very nice way for women to also connect with each other and build a bit of a community feel and support when many of them were pregnant and also new to Dubai, didn't have a lot of support or a lot of network. So after class, you could see all these women congregating and talking and stuff.
Yes.
And I've seen that, and it's quite nice. And
that's the community is a big part of the prenatal yoga practice. And some women, they make friendships that last, for forever, really, after they've connected in this class together, and then they, continue that on after.
So Cheryl, maybe we can go through the third trimester now and some of the changes.
Yes. Okay. So body obviously is getting much bigger. Belly is much bigger. Baby, after about 34 weeks, you want to be thinking about the position of baby in the body. So we want the head to be coming down into the pelvis, which is obviously putting again more pressure on the pelvic area. You want their little back to be to your belly. head down, chin tucked in. So this is what we call an optimal fetal position, and this is going to really help with a better labour, a more ease of labour. So all these changes are happening really. Again, you've got inside the body a lot of organs shifting out of the way, as we've spoken before about the lungs moving up. You're going to get shortness of breath, which is going to affect yoga practice and ability to move and be more active. Things will just start to naturally slow down for a woman who's in her third trimester, especially as she gets into the later stages. Digestive system also, the old intestines get squeezed into a small corner, so she's going to be feeling a lot more sluggish in her digestion. She might be constipated, difficulty also in eating big meals because the stomach gets squashed. Everything basically gets moved around and shifted around. So it's a time naturally that the body is really preparing for the birth of baby. So, we want to support that in the yoga practice too.
So is that reflected in the yoga practice, that there is a slowing down of the feel of the class and maybe the pace?
Yes and no. We still want to maintain, building that nice strength and stamina. As long as a woman doesn't have that pelvic girdle pain, you want to be doing some nice deep squatting to prepare, help baby to actually come down into the pelvis. There's only one contraindication there, if I can mention, if baby is breech. So if their little feet are in the pelvis rather than the head, she doesn't want to be deep squatting, because the deep squat's actually helping that engagement down. So if there's anything other than the head in the pelvis, she wants to avoid that. So if a baby's in breech, she would not deep squat after about 34 weeks. But there is a definite shift in classes and how we prepare the woman for birth. We like to do a lot more meditation, visualization, a lot of breathing practices. A woman will naturally feel more tired, more sluggish. Again, not every woman. Some women feel fantastic and they're leaping around until the very last, few hours up until their labour. But again, women need to feel this in their own bodies and just work intuitively.
And post-pregnancy?
Yeah, so depending on what kind of a birth they've had, if we look at just, a natural vaginal birth with no complications, then a woman can go back to her practice around about 6 weeks after. And again, we always like to say that the doctor should give the green light for that. Now, if there are complications and things, can happen, you might find that there have been issues with the pelvic floor. There's a lot of pressure in the third trimester placed on the pelvic floor. There could be things like incontinence happening, even prolapse. The pelvic floor is that hammock that supports the bladder, the uterus, and you've got to make sure that everything comes back into position. So it's very important that they work on pelvic floor exercises during pregnancy, but especially after pregnancy as well, just to help get the body back into proper alignment.
So would these women be moving into a normal yoga practice, or is there postnatal yoga classes?
There is postnatal, and I really think that people should really respect that postnatal period. We call it the fourth trimester as well. Up until the 6 weeks, body is getting used to having a baby. There's huge changes. It's a massive shift in your life. So that when she's ready to go back to yoga practice, we want to work slowly. We've talked about diastasis recti. A lot of women have abdominal separation. Postnatal yoga is going to just gently bring their abdominals back together. There's some really nice Pilates moves that help to do this. So they don't want to just bounce back into whatever they were doing. If women aren't aware of these changes in their body, they might do that, and it just can make these things worse. So if they've got some pelvic floor issues, if they've got separation of the abdominals, and they bounce right back into their Ashtanga practice, doing all these deep twists, deep core things. It is going to exacerbate the situation. But I think, again, that's where knowledge is key. So if women are with you in the prenatal period, that you're educating them about what they need to do afterwards, and just advising them, you know, just to take it easy and be respectful of their bodies, and that the fact that they've just birthed a human being, it's
and
phenomenal.
They made a human from scratch.
Exactly. So, you know, it's like ease off on the pressure to just get back into everyday activity. I would say, you know, my kids are coming 6 and 3. I am just about, you know, feeling like I'm back to my old self. And I'm okay with that. But it's taken me a long time to make peace with, you know, these changes that do happen.
I think that last statement's like very, very profound. It is. It takes time, and you really have to like be okay with that whole process and the whole journey.
Yeah, it makes me sad to see women, you know, posting on Instagram about, oh, I'm 8 weeks, you know, and I can't do this, and I, you know, post-birth, I'm 8 weeks post-birth, and I can't do this, or I'm trying to do this, and my body's, you know, it's just, it takes time. You know, they've got to just focus on what they've done, the journey that they've taken, and give themselves a huge deal of respect for this amazing thing that has happened to their bodies. And I just wish more women would think like that.
Cheryl, thank you so much for this very insightful
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
If people want to follow you or attend your yoga class, where can they go?
Yes, so I'm on, my website is thepeacelily.com, Lily with 1 L, and I'm on Instagram as well. You'll see lots of pictures of my kids and us doing crazy things. So it's at the Peace Lily. I'm also at Zen Yoga teaching some regular classes. I'm doing a prenatal teacher training this September, so 85-hour Yoga Alliance training September over 3 weekends. So yeah, just connect with me through there, and I'd be delighted to hear from anybody.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cheryl.
Thank you.